So what do you do if you are amongst the last few candidates for a particular job and yet you're never quite the person that gets hired? That's a really tricky problem. And in this short video, I'm going to offer you some ideas which I think you'll find very helpful. Hello, my name is Stephen Wright. I am a career coach here at Career Mentor, and we help high-performing financial services professionals make their next smart career move. So if you are missing out and you are not quite the candidate hired just once or twice, well, perhaps that's down to a whole load of factors which are beyond your control or influence. However, if it happens 3 or 4 times, then perhaps we can say that something of a pattern is forming, and therefore we're now in the game of pattern recognition to understand what's really going on so that we can now make changes in the interview performance that you give such that you're able to get yourself the job and be the person who is hired. So I think there's a number of things which are worth going through. And the first is that I think it's worth acknowledging to yourself that if you are getting into job interviews, that you're progressing through the process of the firm that's doing the recruiting and you're getting to the final few, then clearly you're doing a whole load of things very right. So acknowledge that to yourself because you're very close to getting the right answer. The next thing to say is that in order for us to recognize those patterns, any feedback that we can gather is going to be really useful. And the first is to approach the firm that was interviewing you, especially those interviewers who are the decision makers, and ask them for feedback. Now, you want to ask them in a way where they feel comfortable about being frank and forthright about what they've got to say and not sugarcoat it. And also you want really accurate and specific feedback. Because if you have generalized fluffy feedback, there's nothing really to grab hold of. Whereas you have very specific information about why it was that you were doing really well, and also why it was that you weren't the candidate that was finally selected, then you now have something to work with. The second way in which we can think about feedback is the feedback that you give to yourself. So I encourage all the clients that I work with to write detailed notes about their performance after each and every interview that they have, especially focusing on what you did really well and also what are the ways in which I feel I could have improved my performance in that last interview. This affords you the opportunity to improve your interview technique incrementally, and hopefully that will then lead you to become the chosen candidate and get yourself hired. Next point I'd say is that, of course, we take it for read that you're doing all the basics correctly. That is, that you're establishing rapport, you're pre-framing, you're doing great diagnosis at the outside of the interview, and you're accurately matching what it is that that firm is looking for with the value that you can add, and then handling objections and all the other elements of a job interview. So if we have all those basics working really well, then perhaps the next step is to think about in what way you could give yourself that X factor as a candidate. A couple of suggestions might be that, first of all, you bring some sort of value that they hadn't expected or perhaps put on their job spec. And yet now that they've met you and now that they understand your full capabilities, they can see actually that would be really useful for us to have in addition to all the other things that we're looking for. Another way perhaps to show that you might be an X-Factor candidate is to present yourself in a way where they can see, yes, this candidate can absolutely do the job that we're recruiting for now, but we can also see that this person has all the elements that we can think of as this person is a great hire for the future of this firm, that they're going to stay here for some time and they can continually add value to our business and help us have a successful business. So maybe those are a couple of X-Factor ideas for you, something that you can stand out with. Final point here is about luck. Sometimes you just need to get lucky. And maybe it is in the circumstance that you were picked at the post by somebody who was a closer fit or was a better candidate. But over time, that luck will become a factor where actually really what's important is the degree of preparation that you put into each interview, improving your game in those interviews continually and doing this in enough volume so that success becomes inevitable. I hope you found that useful. I'll be putting the blog that I wrote about this in the comments below, and thanks very much.